Hello everybody, welcome back to another Woodworking Wisdom. We're in our little crafty workshop again, and today the kind of theme of it is pyrography. If you don't know, pyrography is wood burning. So it's using different pens, different style burners to burn designs and artwork into timber. I'm going to go through a few different processes. We've got a nice little kit here, a nice little range of things that we can look at, different tools that we can use. And step by step, we've got a little kind of design, a little picture that we can go through and show you what each machine kind of excels at. And, you know, if you are interested, kind of where you see yourself in that, you know, in the business of pyrography. Now, this is how I kind of got into woodwork when I first started, you know, way back when, probably about 12 years ago now, I first started doing a bit of wood burning. And it was a really nice kind of introduction for me because I'm kind of, I prefer the more kind of arty side, I guess you could say. This was like the bridge between, you know, the drawing and stuff that I like to do at home and the kind of hands-on woodwork here. And the processes to getting that piece of wood straight and flat and sanded, you know, they all kind of add up and gave me the kind of grounding that we have in the workshops today. So we're going to go right from the basics, really. We're going to start with a solid point type pyrography pen. And like I say, I've got a little project here, kind of half started, so you're not having to wait for too long to see how these things work. And I'll give you an idea of how we transfer things on as well. So let's come over to the bench here. I've got a little, well, it's a plum blossom. I've just printed that off from the internet. I found it's an old Japanese silk print, so it's a few hundred years old. There's no copyright on that anymore, so we can print that straight off and use that as a template. So I've got a paper template just printed off of Google Images. Underneath here, I have a piece of carbon or sometimes graphite paper, but this is the carbon one, the really kind of dark markings that it's made. And you can see we've already started to transfer that pattern on, and that's really just to save a bit of time. Okay, I'll show you the carbon paper. It's got a kind of a shiny side and a slightly more matte side. We want that shiny side down on our piece of timber, and our project is going to lie on top of that. Now I've kind of crimped it on the corner so I know where I've got to be. So every time I lift that flap, as long as it goes back to that position, I can work on it more and transfer those bits on. So let's have a quick peek what we got to do. So I'm missing this branch that comes across here. So that one there on the template. So I'm just going to draw that in. I use a like a biro, a ballpoint pen, and I'm just going to come along this little branch. And again, not being too precious about it. With all of these kind of tree shapes, you can get away with perhaps not getting it bang on, because no two sticks are the same. No one's going to look at it and say, that stick's not straight or right. And you'll notice I've not put the flowers on, the actual blossoms themselves. Okay, we're going to use something slightly different to put those flowers on. We've got a different toy we want to show you. Okay, so I've just turned on my solid point pen. Let's just talk about that a minute. So this is the blue, this is the STARKTEX solid point burner. Really handy, this one. It comes with lots of different nibs. If I just grab the packet here, really good for like model makers and things like that. It has a hot knife, really good for those little models. You get like the Airfix models, great for cutting out the patterns. There's a couple of what you would class more as a kind of a stamp or a brand type tip. And then you get these kind of smaller ones as well. So you get a kind of one with a softer tip, and this one here, which they call the skew. Okay, you can see it's much like a skew chisel from wood turning, has that angle across the top there. Now I've been chatting a little bit, just trying to allow this some time just to heat up, because they do take a little while to heat up. Okay, I'm going to test that now, make sure we're good. And what I'm going to do, I'm happy that I've got all the information off of this this piece of paper now. So I'm going to get rid of that bit of carbon paper. I'm going to take off my transfer, but I'm going to keep it close as a reference. Okay, so I've got it there, and I can refer to it if I need to. Okay, so really important with something like this, it has no variable temperature, so it's a kind of plug and go. Okay, there's no display on it showing you that it is actually turned on, and these get really, really hot. So, you know, if you're using something like this, just be careful that you turn it off, unplug it from the mains when you've finished. Okay, so let's give it a little go. Let's see if we've kind of heated up. And this skew type tip is great for kind of the more detailed stuff. Okay, it will cut, almost kind of cut into the wood. It leaves a big kind of wide V, but still nice and clean. It's not kind of blobbing along the way. It's a nice clean but wide burn. And I'll just engage in that tip and following our line. And I'm burning over the top of the line of this carbon that we've left behind, because it is quite waxy. It's quite heavy, this type of carbon paper. But it works really well. And you can get this in different colors if you have trouble seeing certain colors or things like that. The sorrel papers are really good for this type of thing. As always, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat there if we're live, in the comments below if you're watching this after. We got Craig on our questions today. He's looking after us with the cameras. So really, just following this line. Nothing too tricky. Now, we have got quite a big distance from where we're gripping the tool to the kind of the business end of it, and you do lose a little bit of control, with that kind of reach. What I do is kind of plant my wrist as a stable platform, engage that tight little tip, and then we can follow these lines. Rotate the workpiece to get your angles. And some of these lines you don't actually have to pull the tip along, you can just push it in, because we've got that long, almost like a cutting edge, that gives you your straight line. So this type of burner is really affordable, a nice kind of entry level thing. And if you're kind of just umming and ahhing about it, if you fancy to go at a bit of wood burning but didn't want to shell out for the kind of more expensive units, this is a great way just to test the water, really, to make sure it's something you're interested in. But I love this pyrography. It's really nice, relaxing, kind of forces you to slow down a little bit. and you get in the zone and just get kind of taken away with it. So if I forget you lot are there, Craig will give me a prod and make sure we're doing something. Okay. Right. So you can see how that works. All right. It's a nice fine line we're getting off of that. And that is the skew tip. Okay. I'm going to turn that one off now, and we're going to have a look at a slightly different one. But before we do, I just want to show you another little tip. If you were to get even finer, you can grind these tips. That was like a round-nosed type of tip, and I've ground this to it's a really sharp little skew, a bit like the one we've just taken out, but even smaller if we wanted to get into some of this finer detail. You can grind these, and they'll shape them how you like them. Okay, so we've got our first question.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Craig here. Great to have you with us. Yes, Ben, I've got a couple of questions. First one's from Frederick, and it refers to the AT406 lathe that Colwyn actually uses. He's got an issue with the tool rest not locking quite securely enough. Frederick, could you drop an email to Colwyn, and he'll pick that one up because he's not with us today. And another question from Frederick, pyrography related, and there's a good few people that seem to have a burning desire to learn pyrography. Frederick there said it's kind of burning a hole in his pocket.
Okay,
yeah. We've got some jokes coming already. But no, on a serious note, we've got a question from Frederick then. He doesn't know too much about pyrography, but he's heard that the best wood is birch from his information, and referred to an A side and a B side. Do you know what that means?
So I'm guessing that's a birch ply if it's graded A or B. Yeah. So an A, so a piece of ply, but piece of birch ply. Usually there's going to be one face facing out, and one face towards, perhaps the back of the cabinet. It's not going to be on the outside face. And sometimes they'll have little patches in, little kind of almost like a butterfly shape patch. And that would be on the B side. The A side is that super clean face. Okay, so that's the difference in grade on a birch ply. Really good to burn on. So don't do any heavy texturing with plies and things like that, because the adhesive that just sits under those thin layers is very toxic. If if you're creating smoke, if you're doing heavy texturing, you don't want to be breathing in that smoke. Obviously all smokes are a little bit toxic. But I'm never filling a room in here. I usually crack the window or have a fan just taking the smoke away. But best ones for pyrography, this is a piece of lime, which is lovely. It's great. It's that kind of, it's good for carving, but it's got that close grain. And, when we're doing pyrography and carving, we're kind of looking for the same kind of characteristics in the wood, that we've got that tight, close grain. With carving, that's going to stop it from kind of splitting away. And with pyrography, it's going to just allow the pen just to go through nice and evenly, so we're not getting those dips and troughs. So it's you get a nice clean line that way. But lime, sycamore, the fruit woods, so apple, cherry, and pear, all great timbers. Okay.
Thanks, Ben.
So,
you kind of answered the question from Lawrence here as to any particular wood that's best for pyrography. But what's your favourite?
Sycamore. Yeah, I love the sycamore. And sometimes in the sycamore you get that lovely ripple. You sometimes get some like watermarks, and typically it's quite kind of white creamy color, which offers that great contrast against our dark burns. But you get the odd really special bit, and you get some really nice coloring. I'll show you a bit sycamore actually. I've got a big bowl here, so let's have a little look. So that's a piece of sycamore, and it's got all that kind of water damage, which gives it a really nice, cool, almost like a spalting in it. So really nice piece of timber, and then obviously you get that lovely contrast with the pyro. But yeah, nice bowl. That's one of Colwyn's we've decorated. But yeah, that's my fave, sycamore. And again, it's nice and readily available. Quite often considered a bit of a weed tree. So, you know, they're great. And if you can get to a sawmill, quite often they have offcuts, really thin bits where they're flattening the trees to cut into planks. And those offcuts are brilliant. And quite often they're in the firewood pile. So, yeah, go and check that out. You get some nice little freebies. This piece of lime, really nice to burn on. Again, this was a kind of a process of just testing great big bandsaw we had. So Craig had we get new machines in sometimes, and how deep can we cut that? We had this great big piece of lime. He's cut off a little slither because you get the full depth. But I've ended up with a really nice little piece of timber. It's got a bit of a wonk on, but that's fine. We don't need it to be flat and straight. With our pyro, it doesn't need to be. We're not fitting it to anything. It's just a standalone piece, so it doesn't have to be flat as well. Again, great for using up scraps and stuff.
Great. Okay. Yeah, Les says he has a Peter Child's pyro machine. Yours get blobs all over the place. Any tips on blobs?
That is great timing. Great timing. We're going to look at blobs now. The Peter Child's unit is a great unit. Don't think that it's the actual tool. Sometimes it's a little bit on technique. Sometimes it will be the timber. But blobbing is when you come across the grain. So if we come in on that overhead one there, you can see the grain of the timber running this way. Potentially, if we come across with our burner, we're going to dip in and out between the grain, and that's going to give us a kind of a blobby effect. What you want to do is one of two things. Come off the pressure a little bit. So we're taking kind of gentle strokes. Let's start this end. So right off the pressure, and I'm literally just touching on and making lots of smaller marks, a bit like sketching with a pencil, smaller marks and lighter touch. And the other thing you can do is use a sharp tip, which will just cut through right through the grain and give you that super, super fine line. Okay. So we've got another question.
We have. Can you pyro on MDF?
Definitely not. I wouldn't recommend it. I see lots of stuff on, social media, and we're always tutting to ourselves. Again, it's that adhesive. The adhesive that holds it together is going to produce a very toxic smoke, which we don't want. We do not want to be breathing that in. Some places, the MDF itself is not used. But yeah, don't burn on MDF. Don't burn on top of paint. Don't burn on things that have been heavily oiled. Sand them back if you need to. If you've got something you want to restore and put a little pattern on, you can always paint over the top, but don't burn on top of paint and kind of oiled surfaces. And it'll affect the burn as well. It kind of blushes across the surface a little bit more when you've got an oil on. Okay, so another question.
Yeah, Laz, he says he has a temperature-controlled soldering station with a variety of changeable tips.
Mm-hmm.
Do many folks use that rather than a dedicated pyro station? Would it work?
They do. I've seen all sorts of people using stuff. I've seen a guy who he did these beautiful horses, and he used to just have nails, which he had just in the fire. And he'd pull them out with a pair of pliers and burn onto the wood. And people used to pick sticks out the fire with a glowing ember on the end, make art with that. You know, there's as long as it's burning the wood, there's no right or wrong. You've got that variable temperature, which is really useful on that one. But yeah, crack on with that. It'd be a nice little tool to use that. But yeah, so this is our Axminster wood burning station now. Sorry, I kind of switched tools without really mentioning it. It's our Axminster wood burning station. It's got quite a chunky pen, which I quite like. I do like the kind of bigger grip to get hold of. Again, we've got not as much as this one, but we've got a fair distance from project to the grip, which can be annoying for some, but I don't mind it too much. It's like using a long kind of fountain pen, I guess. But this is just the writing style tip. This is a round wire, and on these ones, let me see if I got one here. You get these kind of brass lugs on the end of the tip, and in the actual pen itself, the sleeves that it goes into are a kind of an open sleeve to receive these kind of big brass bits. Okay, so you can't just use a wire like the nichrome wire or nichrome wire straight off the bat, but you can get longer little bolts. So these little bolts, I forget, well, I think it's a cheese head when it's like rounded like that. A cheese head bolt, that's an M3 thread in there. So you can get slightly bigger bolts, and then you can use the nichrome wire. Okay, just be careful how much we're tightening these. We don't want to over tighten them and to break out the back here, because it is quite a thin piece of metal there. I'm pointing with this because it's all very hot, so I don't want to burn myself. And quite as well, the excuse me, the Peter Childs pen will slot straight into this wood burning unit. It's got the same kind of input holes on the actual unit itself. So Peter Childs one, if you wanted, or if you've got one of these already and wanted to upgrade, that Peter Childs pen's a lovely thing to use. Okay, so another question.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. There's one for me, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I'm going to hijack your video. But Maria's asked, she's keen on the HDF Velcro mat top for path dogs. Just how moisture resistant is it? Would it be okay in a damp, non-heated garage workshop? Well, it's a fiberboard, and no fiberboard likes moisture, so it doesn't want to get wet. However, it is used a lot in the manufacture of kitchen cabinet doors, and we know the amount of moisture and heat and temperature change in kitchens. So I would say as long as it's not really, really damp and not, dripping off the eaves sometimes, I think it'd be okay. Yeah, you may need to remount the holes after a period of time if you find that you get a little bit of shrinkage in the 20mm path holes, but I think it'll be all right. I've had one for years, and it's been inside and outside and chucked in the corner of the workshop and got a bit damp and spray painted and God knows what on it. Yeah, it seems okay. We have another question. Let me just scroll down and find it for you. Oh yeah, one from Frederick. Do other tips fit the Axminster machine?
So not straight from the manufacturers. Like I say, you can get slightly longer bolts that will go through and pinch on a thinner wire, but not straight out of the box. You need a little bit of tinkering. I would just remove these, check them out, take them down to your wherever you get your nuts and bolts from, and we just want a slightly longer thread on that. Probably it could be 10mm long. It's an M3 thread, so really easy to replace things like that. But like I say, just go careful how tight you're doing them up. Those big brass lugs kind of spread the weight of the or the pressure, I should say, of the tip all around inside that sleeve. These are a real tricksy to get back in. So don't take them all the way out if you can avoid it. But yeah, that is an M3 bolt. Is nothing fancy. If you wanted to replace them and use a nichrome wire, you can. Sorry, I just want to get this back in because I want to show you this other tip. But my top tip of the day, don't take them out. Get that in there. Oh, it's because I'm concentrating too hard now. Let's go on to a different burner. Let me one more try. It isn't as hard as I'm making it out to be. It's just the pressure's on, and I always when the pressure ramps up, I can never get it. So we'll go to another pen. Yeah, it is easy peasy, by the way. Okay, all right. Another question there, Craig.
Yeah, we've got another question. If you put the Peter Childs pen in the Axminster unit, does it mean that you can use thicker gauge wires in the Peter Childs pen, which he finds is a main limitation?
Yeah, so you can use the Peter Childs one has a couple of little but they're like a little split nut and bolt, so you can put whatever size wire you want in there, and it will tighten up on it. Yeah, you've got like a big, much like the ANTEX one here, you've got a much bigger receptacle, we'll call it, for the wires to go in. And yeah, that'll fit straight onto our Axminster wood burning station. Okay.
All right. Yeah, we've got another couple of questions, and don't worry, Cliff, we didn't miss your question. It's here. Colin said that he uses the fire writer to sign his work.
Yeah.
Is there anything to note when signing wood? Any tips on letter writing and stuff?
So same sort of thing. Certain species are going to be a bit more tricky than others. Things like ash and oak have that kind of hard and soft grain, so sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge. Don't oil the bottom straight off, so don't finish the bottom of the bowl or wherever you're burning, signing it, because that will give you that kind of blush across the surface. But yeah, it's a lot of practice, really. With all these things, practice will really help, and I would do it on something flat first. Okay. And quite often, if it's a bowl, you're kind of up here on the bottom of the bowl. Let's say we're signing the bottom of this one, and we're up here. Sometimes it's good to find something to support that arm. So if you're on a bench, get yourself a towel or pillow to bring your arm up to rest on. Sometimes if you're dangling here, you've got your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, too many kind of pivot points, and you can kind of lose the kind of effect of what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah, top tip, that one, Ben. Nice one. Sleeping Dog wants to make a tip that burns a small ring shape. Is it possible to make such a thing from wire, crimping or soldering or something?
You can, yeah. Let me show you a tip that I made. So this is more of a kind of texturing type thing. If you're into pyrography, you may have heard of a guy called Graham Priddle. He does these really nice turn things, and he textures them with these kind of like a little spiral. So this was my attempt of trying to copy something like that. But you can bend these wires whatever shape you want. You could do a heart-shaped one, and just practice, really. I would, if you're going for something round, wrap it around something that's round rather than trying to kind of shape it by hand. These wires, they like to work under tension. So if you get it, you crimp it like that and just wrap it around something that's already round rather than kind of trying to bend it, because what you'll end up with is almost like a hexagon type shape if you're trying to manipulate it with pliers or something. So use use an old nail, a screwdriver, whatever you've got, a little bar of something. Okay, but yeah, make them whatever shape you want. I would go for a chunkier gauge wire, so every time you apply the pressure, it's not going to bend, because you'll be constantly bending it back and it will get a little bit frustrating. Okay, so another question.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple comments. Dances with Aardvarks says he's just made his own round tip to put chainmail effect on a spindle. So
cool.
That sounds really cool, doesn't it?
Yeah,
we want to see that, don't we?
For sure. Yeah,
let's get some pictures in. Come on.
Yeah.
Another tip. Laz says tip for holding small screws into a screwdriver tip. Use a bit of blue tack. Use a bit of blue tack.
Blue tack.
Top tip.
Genius. Yeah.
Top tip.
Love it. Yeah, that would have helped me 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Only joking.
I think it was Frederick that said maybe you got a screw loose.
Keep them safe. They're tiny little things. I'm going to put it in my bowl over here, in case it goes down one of my holes in my bench. Okay, so we're on to the Firewriter now. These work much the same, both the Axminster wood burning unit and our ANTEX Firewriter. The pen's a little bit more comfortable to hold, a little bit more ergonomic. The fittings here are superior. There's no two ways about it. And it grips onto the nichrome wire. So you can go right up to heavy gauges. You can see where they kind of go into the barrels there. And when we're tightening these, again, let's not over tighten them. Let's get it just biting on and take it that tiny bit further on both of these. You don't want these loose. You don't want the tip moving as you apply pressure. And these type of sharp tips, these are the ones I do most of my work with. They'll do all sorts of stuff for us. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is just fill in this blackened area. If we go back to our template, that's all black or dark on that one. Okay, so we're going to fill that in. Again, on my sharp tip, I'm just going to kind of drag this one. Let's crack the heat up a bit. And this is where we're going to start producing a little bit more smoke. There's kind of texturing. The air filters work really good. You can get the little kind of carbon filters for the air filters. They'll work really good if you feel like if you're doing a lot of this. I haven't actually got too much, so I'm not too worried about the kind of smoke in the room, because it's going to kind of just dissipate into the room. So I've got my heat up quite high. This is just glowing red. Okay. Normally, if I'm not filling in, if I'm just doing my lines and stuff, this tip wouldn't be glowing. It would be just below. But for this, we want to kind of move the project along a little bit. So I'll crack the heat up. And that'll also give you a nice little texture as well. It kind of forms the surface of the wood. And I'm trying to kind of follow the direction. So, if there is any kind of lines on the bark, they look like they're going or growing in the right direction. That's good. Oh, these little bits up here. And you can see how quickly that's working. It's nothing too difficult about that, and laying that flat of the tip down and just bringing that in. Now, say we went over any little lines or anything like that, you can carve things back, you can sand things back. So although it's indelible, there are ways you can kind of take that back off of the surface. And I'm just, because I went on with that that solid point one, I'm just giving it a little bit more definition where I think it needs it. Down the end of the branches. Just give it that little kind of sharpness. Good. Okay, so we've got another question.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions here, my friend. Could you explain a little bit more about the wire and the different types, etc.?
Yeah. So there's only one type of wire, so it's a nichrome wire. I'll show you how I get it. With the fire writer, it comes. You get a pack. You get a little pack of wires, all different gauges in there, so you can use the thicker ones for tip making. The thinner ones you want to keep almost for your kind of writing style tips. Okay, I've got a couple of tips here that I can show you straight off the bat. That one I've just been using, that kind of sharp edged tip. Okay, that's something I've just hammered out flat. It's just your normal writing style tip. So it would be a tip like that, which is just a round wire. And you can see the shape's the same. This one has just been hammered out flat on a little steel plate and a bit of abrasive just to give it a sharp edge. So this is a nickel chromium wire. This is 0.8 millimeters or 21 on the standard wire gauge. Okay, they're very specific, these wires, but check it out on wires.co.uk. They've got all different ones, and you want the I think it's called a bare nickel wire, rather than some I see they're coated in lacquer, some are coated in silk. I'm not quite sure what they're used for, but it is it's great stuff. I've got a great big bundle of it there. I bought 125 grams, and I think that cost me about 14 quid. But that really is tips forever. I've got a spool there, and people are always nicking these off of me when they do shows and things like that. I'm always making tips, and they're taking them away with them. So I made sure I had plenty to cover those instances. Okay.
Yeah.
So another question.
Question from Jenny. Do either of the units come with the stands to hold the tool when it's hot?
So this one does. So this one has like a little pressed plate, a little pressed steel plate that just sits on there. The ANTEX is kind of stepped up a bit. It's got a little pen holder. All right, so it just slots on the side of the machine there. And then the single point one, the solid point one comes with this little blue bit with a wire on it, and that just hooks over that little collar and sits nice and safe on the workbench. Okay, yeah, don't ever put them just flat like that on the bench. You're either going to you're going to do some damage, whether it's burning the bench or potentially worse. We don't like to give you the horror stories, but just with things like that, better safe than sorry. Just remove it from the mains after use. Okay, because even if you've switched it off, someone else might come in and switch it on. They might think it's the I don't know, the washing machine or something. Switch it on, and none the wiser, and it's kind of left there hot. So always, if you're using that, pack it away. Isolate it from the mains. So yeah, they've always got a stand or something that comes with it. Now another part of wood burning, I just want to show you this little SCORCH marker. It's much like a felt tip pen. The packaging's changed slightly from this one. This is a slightly older one, and actually it's double-ended now. You get like a felt tip on one side and then this kind of chisel tip on the other. Okay, and what I'm going to do is put in these little blossoms, these little flowers, with this SCORCH marker. Okay, and I'd done one earlier today as a practice, and I'd marked all of this out with a pencil, and I wasn't happy with the way it kind of framed the flower too much. So I'm going freehand this time. We're going to draw the little flowers on and then see what magic we can do with our heat gun. So this has got a solution in it that kind of reacts to heat. And I'm just drawing these kind of petal shapes in. It's a little bit difficult to see. You can just about see it. They've put a kind of a die or something that gives us a rough idea of where we've been. And I'm just freehand putting on some of these shapes. Again, these don't have to be perfect. They're just kind of a suggestion at these little blooms. And we can come back in with our pyro pens if we want to put in a bit more detail. I'm just really, the eyes are flicking up to the pattern. And then back down to the workpiece. I'm just putting some little lines coming from where each of these little buds or flowers start to give it a bit of, a bit of an illusion of a bit of depth. So they're kind of coming out from the middle of the flowers. We got one here, so I'll move it along a little bit. And we've got a flower shape there. A little tuft there. And like I say, this is quite a quick and easy project, but some of the bigger stuff we do, you know, you can spend hours on and really get lost in it. Really kind of therapeutic for me. So just trying to copy the shape a little bit, although they might look a bit weird. Some of these flowers have kind of wilted. Some of them are just little buds, just starting off. And we'll get this, get the heat gun on this in a minute, and you'll see it kind of darken up and spring to life. It's lovely. Quite a cool little thing, really, and gives you effects that you would really, you know, be really tricky to do with the kind of classic pyrography units. Great way of filling in color quickly. Okay, so a question.
Yeah, we've got a question from Jesse. Are different pre-made pen? I'll start again, shall I? Are different pre-made pen tips compatible with different handles, or do you have to stay with the same brand?
Generally, they if you're getting those just the normal kind of wire type tips, they will fit in all of these units, no problem. Again, the Peter Childs. Some do. I know Razor Tip do one where it's like this whole piece you just take off and interchange the tips. Generally, yes, if it's just the kind of plain wire type, they're interchangeable because, you know, the gap sometimes differs, but, you know, a little pull them apart with your fingertips or a pair of pliers, something like that, and that's going to open it up. Or, you know, the opposite might be you might want to close it down a little bit, so just pinch it between your fingers until it's going to, you know, kind of bully it into the however it's being held on these barrels on these other pens. So generally, yes. ANTEX do them. Again, the Peter Childs do the pre-ground, pre-shaped tips, but they're quite expensive for what they are, really. I was looking earlier and it was about 23 quid or something for 3 tips, and I've bought myself probably 200 or 300 tips for less money than that. It's just, you know, the pain of having to make them myself, I guess. So it's more of a kind of convenience to get those other tips. So this is drying up now. I can't quite see where I've been, but it will soon all be revealed, and we can always revisit if we've missed something. So these are just like little buds now, no actual flowers. There's a big flower on this bit, so we go for a petal there, a petal here. Got one kind of coming in underneath, and then the big one around the back. And I'll put those lines in again, coming from the center out. And I think that will just about do it. Okay. So, you got another question?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions here, Ben.
Lovely.
Question from Adrian. Now, there are lots of tip options for sale on, say, Amazon. Are they any good? There seems to be very cheap, and was wondering if they're up to the job.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure what you're looking at. The nichrome, the nickel and the chrome, I think it's an 80-20 mix that the ones are in that I use. I couldn't say, off the top of my head what those other tips are, what they're made of, but check in the product description. Nichrome, they call it. What else do they call it? Nickel chromium. I've got a couple of words on top here. Nickel chrome. And you see there the 80-20 mix. Okay. So 80% nickel, 20% chrome. And you find this stuff, this is sort of why you find toasters and those old-fashioned bar heaters where you've got that wire kind of wrapped around a bar. What it does is you can bring it up to a really high temperature and it's not going to change the temper of it. So it can get hot and cold, and it's not going to change the kind of stability, the strength of the metal. Okay. So another question.
Yeah, question from Lawrence. What's the best way to protect these pyrography art pieces?
I tend to oil. I love oil. Again, it's going to bring out all the natural beauty in the wood. Some things, what have I got? Oh, my fish. Some things like this. If I just, so I've done a big koi carp, but if we come down on the detail here, on the head, not quite getting it, but there's like a big scorch which we did with a torch. Okay. Now something like that it will just drink oil. I put a little bit of what do they use on the turnings? Like cellulose sealer. Yeah, put a little bit of that on first, and that will kind of hardens it, and then you can whack the oil on the top. If you're putting oil on something that's got a lot of carbon on, it's just going to pick up that carbon and kind of wash it around the surface. Obviously, we've got porous material here, and the wood will pull the oil in with that dark carbon and make a right old mess. So spray lacquers as well, they're really good. I mean, just grab another one here quickly. Sorry for escaping off camera. And we come back on that overhead one again. This one's got a real scorch on it, real crackling all the way along. So I used the spray lacquer on that one, just because I didn't want to handle it too much because bits are falling off. But yeah, it depends on your project, really. It depends if you've got creams, if you're using creams or any other kind of colors to enhance it. Just check your labels on your tins, make sure they're kind of compatible with one another. You don't want to put a cream on there that's perhaps like spirit based, and then put something spirit based to finish on top, because it's going to lift it. It's going to kind of disintegrate the paste, and then again you're in trouble. Okay, so I'm going to get my little heat gun out now. I've got a hot air gun here, or a heat gun. This is the little BOSCH one. And these get really hot again. Whenever you're using anything with a lot of heat, just be careful after you've used it, where you put it, and you know, think about storage and things like that. I'm going to whack this at full power. All right. Sometimes you've got to be a little bit careful with a slither of wood like this. It might kind of bend or cup, but hopefully we'll get away with it. So straight on there with the heat. It takes a little while to kind of activate. Yeah, hopefully you'll start to see these little blossoms just kind of coming out. And you can expect it to kind of bleed a little bit. Try and keep it moving. I'm about 4 inches away from the workpiece. Just trying to bring that heat in. Without the heat of the gun really kind of scorching the wood. But you can see them starting to just appear. And the longer you hang around, the darker that will get. I quite want this kind of low, wishy-washy look. That's what I'm going for. Because I'm then going to go back in with my my sharp tip and just put a little bit more detail on. But I think it offers a nice contrast to the burn. You know, just slowly kind of get that marker pen just working, just kind of coming to life with that, with the heat. And again, if you spend a bit more time on it, it will darken it up. Just want a little bit more color up on this top one. So we're just going to hang around there and bring that in, and maybe just this little one at the bottom here. Let's bring that in. Okay. So this heat gun's got a little stand on it, so you can kind of stand it on end when you're done with it. Put that away. Make sure there's no kind of kiddies around to, you know, say, oh, what's that, and pick it up. Okay. So we've got a question.
Yeah, a question from Frederick. He says he likes these pens. Can you buy others that turn different colours?
No, they kind of it is actually burning the timber. So it kind of comes out that browny burnt colour. But that sounds like a cool idea. You know, different coloured ones. I'm sure there's probably something out there that might do that for you. But this one, the scorch markers, that it's really just that kind of burn. All right. So we're going to put a little bit more detail on here. Again, I've gone with my go-to, my little sharp tip in the pyro unit, and I'm bringing the temperature down. Remember we did that kind of heavy scorch with the flat. Now I'm going up on edge and using it sharp like a knife, really, like a knife. Just bringing my template back in. I blew that off the bench, and Craig very kindly went and got that for me. I'm missing a flower here, but that's not too much to worry about. What I'm going to do, it's still a bit hot. Let's bring that temperature right down. And just blow on the end there. And we got these little kind of like stamen or stigma. I'm not sure which one. It's been a while since my last biology lesson. And we don't have to do much. We're more kind of hinting at this shape and these things. And look, that has bowed the workpiece a little bit, but as that cools, that will kind of shrink back down and settle down a little. I wouldn't go much thinner than this if you're using a heat gun. But this is just to go back in and pick out any little bits. Sometimes it's nice just to kind of define some of these. Again, we don't want to be too fussy with the detail. Just try and pick out so you can see little bits on the flower, perhaps where the bud goes into the stalk. It's quite nice just to pick out that back end of the flower. What does this flower look like down here? So this one, let's kind of pick out a couple of these petals. Oops. So these sharp tips aren't the best at coming around curves, but they are the best for making super fine detail. You have to kind of twist the pen for it to come around the curve. So what else do we want to do here? Let's put a little bit on the back end of this one and go up into our little corner one here. So a really nice little pyro project. I really like this kind of Eastern art. It really lends itself to these lovely kind of flat pieces. So check out the painted silks. And of course, because they're so old, unless they've been brought by people who are using those images these days, they're quite often copyright and royalty free. And stuff like that belongs to the people anyway, in my eyes. Okay, so there we go. We could probably do a bit more to that. I feel like this flower here needs a little bit more with the old pen, but you can go back in with that, put the pen back in, and again switch on that little kind of heat gun to activate it. But that's it really, folks. So a bit on pyrography. We've got any other questions before we sign off, Craig?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you, Ben. Dances with Aardvarks has asked, who are your favourite online pyrographers?
So I haven't got I don't really look at pyrography too much online. I've got some really good books. There's a Sue Walters. Her pyrography workbook is a great thing. It's got loads of cool technique and stuff in there. And then who else have we got? There's Laura S. Irish. She does some really great books. Yeah, there's loads out there. Check them out. There's some really nice people, really kind of specialize in certain things, and so someone will just do animal portraits and things like that. I'm quite into Japanese like manga and things. So the stuff that I do personally is very much different to this. But you know, do things that you have an interest in. That's going to really drive you forward to finish these projects. To push on and get something done that you think's cool, that you think's interesting. Quite often, I do lots of sign writing and things like that, and that can become a bit of a chore. But so mix it up and keep it interesting for yourself, and don't lose the kind of drive to want to finish things. You know, I've had this project in my garage now that's been half finished for a long time, and it really kind of kills your creativity when you think, you know, you want to do a fresh new one, but actually you've still got this one that's been doing it. So push on through and get those projects finished, and get on to the next one. That's where you're going to get your best practice and stuff in. Okay.
Yeah, Frederick, he says he would like to do one from a picture of his granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
How would you go about it? Transfer that image onto the wood, etc.
So first of all, I would take that through. If you've got the photo as an image on the computer, first thing is just black and white it. You want to perhaps change the contrast slightly, so you get that really kind of sharp bit where the shadows are, and the light bit where, you know, where the light's reflecting, and that's going to give you a really good head start, because that kind of makes it monotone. Like I say, it will give you a great head start. If not, if you've got a color photo, like a physical photo, again, whack it on the photocopier. We used to have them in post offices and things like that. A lot of those services are getting harder to find, but libraries will certainly have a photocopier that you can pay to use. Black and white, it would be my biggest bit of advice, and then use like a carbon paper or something like that to transfer. Okay.
And a question from Jesse: how fine a line can the scorch marker do?
So the scorch marker, like I say, it depends on what sort of timber you're on, really. What have we got? It will kind of bleed into the timber, but they recommend if you oil the timber first, then you'll get a sharper line off of that. And also, if you've got your pyrography pen, that will keep any bleeding in check. So you can cut your very fine lines, and it will kind of bleed up to that line. So quite often, if you're using pyrography to mark out this template, use that sharp one first, cut around all your outlines, and then use that almost as like an infill, and it will bleed up to the line. But because you've severed the kind of fibers around it, it will stop it from bleeding any further. So you could get super fine that way, but otherwise it's much like using a felt tip on, I guess, like a blotting paper on the bare timber. So not too fine. If you want something super fine, go with your pyrography pen. Otherwise, the scorch marker is a nice little gadget. Okay. So that's it, bit on pyrography. Like I say, a really lovely little hobby. Give it a go. You know, it's not, you're not going to break the bank just to test the kind of the solid point ones. It's something that I love doing, and I hope that you guys will enjoy it too. Come back for some more woodworking wisdom. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon.